The Taliban is back in Afghanistan. One of the biggest worrying factors and concerns is what is going to happen to the rights of women, of children, of people who want to study. But more importantly, there is another area of concern. That is, what is going to happen to the minority community and minority sects. During the Taliban regime, it was the Hazara community that suffered greatest at the hands of the Taliban. What will happen to them is something that we will be discussing with our guest today, Saleem Javed, who is a Hazara activist from Balochistan in Pakistan, but has been closely monitoring all kinds of oppression and brutality against the Hazara community in Afghanistan as well. Saleem, many thanks for joining us here in India today. I begin by asking you the incident that has shaken the faith of what is of the promises that the Taliban is making, and the contrast with the visuals of Hazara leader Abdul Ali Mazari's statue desecrated and destroyed. Your first reaction to the attack and the desecration?
Thank you so much, Geeta, for having me. It was really heartbreaking. We have always believed that Taliban, they say one thing, but they do the other things. In the optics, they try to do some good things for the optics. They have learned how to talk. They have learned how to betray the Western journalists. They have learned how to, particularly their English-speaking talking heads, they know what to say to be accepted. But the reality is that they have not changed. They do not materialize the promises that they do. They do not commit with the promises. Just a few hours after Zabihullah Mujahid's rather impressive press conference in Kabul, the statue of the most popular and respected Hazara leader was blown up. It was vandalized, and it was and the worst, they broke up the head and put it on the side as if you behead it. And it was like, and then it was a message. It was a clear message that while we are talking to the international media in Kabul, in front of all the English-speaking people, here in Bamyan, which is far away, which is away from the sight of the international media, which is even other forces are not there, and the people are totally helpless. We can do this. And then I have to also mention that there was a protest against it today in Bamyan. The people were furious. They were up there, and and then I saw a video clip of the protest when one of the Taliban commanders come and they try to calm down the people. He first says, "No, we're trying to find out who was the person who did it. Maybe it was some criminals. Maybe there was somebody who did it, like to defame Taliban." Like all this stuff. And then the fact is, excuse me, just to finish, the fact is that there is no any other one in Bamyan. Bamyan is totally a Hazara dominated province. Why should somebody come and discredit the statue of Baba Mazari?
Well, that's a very important point. You've made a few very important points. Let's begin with the fact that the Taliban now are alleging propaganda. I interviewed the spokespersons of the Taliban as well, Zabihullah Mujahid as well as Suhail Shaheen, and both of them have been saying that they will honor and respect minorities. And minorities are safe in Afghanistan. But the vandalization and the kind of approach that you're seeing in places like Bamyan certainly remind us of what happened to the Buddha statues of Bamyan. And the Taliban might have changed in terms of how they speak, but hasn't really changed in terms of its ideology.
I don't think so. I don't think they have changed. Rather the opposite. I think they are more arrogant. They're more brutal, more merciless, because now they literally they say that they have defeated the international forces. They have defeated the strongest military alliance in the world. They have brought down the superpower. So they say it loudly, but at the same time, they know that they need the Western money. They need their recognition to continue doing what they are doing. And for that, they have to do some polishing. And that polishing is going on in Kabul, and that polishing is going on, unfortunately, with the help of international media. I'm not going to back to what they did in the 90s. Just take a few weeks ago, when they captured Hazara-dominated district of Malistan in Ghazni province, they promised the people before, announced that they would not harm anybody, and asked the people not to flee. But and the people believed them. They did not flee. They stayed and they remained at their homes. But when they took the center of Malistan district, they went house to house and they collected the people, identified them, and asked about their ID cards, and then they shot them dead. This has been documented by Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission and by Human Rights Watch. It's a very tragic incident there that they ask a very elderly man. They ask, where is your ID card? He says, okay, it is at home. I go, I'll bring it. Okay, go and your children will stay here. And when he comes back, the children are dead.
Okay. In terms of expectations from the international community, where do you see the international community when it comes to these concerns? We know that there has been a lot of conversation about women and children and girls, but not a lot of, even minorities when it comes to Sikhs and Hindus, but not much focus when it comes to what's going to happen and befall the Hazara community of Afghanistan.
And to be honest, when I talk to the Hazara people, the activists on the ground, they are very terrified. They do not want to speak. They are afraid of reprisal. They know even I have received messages that I should stop talking because my stance might endanger the people there. It's very difficult for me. It's a difficult situation for me because at the same time I know that these are the things we should come up, and the world should know. And then they are totally hopeless. They think that the world has just put the rug under the feet and then thrown them into to the wolves, literally. How should you assure the people of Afghanistan, or particularly the minority ethnic communities, of protection when Joe Biden, the president of the United States, come and say that I'm glad that we have evacuated our embassy safely. So he's talking about US embassy, which is closed down safely. So now they're not negotiating about the rights of women. They are not negotiating about the rights of other ethnic groups. They are simply negotiating surrender, the entire total international community. And that is what brings a lot of hopelessness for the entire people of Afghanistan. And that's why what you see, the miserable, tragic incidents at the airport in Kabul, where the people try to cling to aircrafts.
Well, Saleem, for the benefit of our viewers, explain why is it that the Hazara community in Afghanistan have suffered at the hands of various majority communities of the country in the past. It's not just the Taliban. And it became brutally more obvious in terms of the discrimination when the Taliban had come to power. Explain to our viewers why.
Yeah, an absolute majority of Hazaras, they live in the central highlands of Afghanistan, which is called Hazarajat, the land of Hazaras, which was independent for over a century ago. And then the Amir of Afghanistan, Amir Abdurrahman, he invaded Hazara lands, and there he faced a very tough resistance because he did not face that type of resistance from other parts of Afghanistan. But there, it was really hard for him. And at the end, the only way he could invade the Hazarajat was that he asked the Sunni mullahs to issue a fatwa. They are Shias, they are Rafizi, which is called in Arabic. They are Shia Rafizis and they are infidels, and they should wage jihad against them. And then they collected a lot of fighters from different parts of Afghanistan, and they finally invaded Hazarajat. And that caused, that was a genocide. Many historians have written that around about 60% of the entire Hazara population were either killed or forced into exile and enslaved. And I'm an example of that atrocity, because my grandparents and the former chief of army staff of Pakistan, General Musa Khan Hazara. So the grandfathers, they fled from central Afghanistan due to the persecution of Amir Abdurrahman Khan, and fled to Pakistan, which now is the dominant area in parts of Quetta, Pakistan. And that continued because the mistrust continued, because the Hazaras, they literally did not accept that, despite the fact that Amir Abdurrahman's son after that came and announced amnesty, but it did not work, because kingdom after kingdom after kingdom, they try to keep them suppressed, keep them as literally as slaves in many parts of Afghanistan. They were not allowed to go into colleges until very recently. Did not go to, and it was the first time, literally, that when the international forces with the United Nations came to Afghanistan, and the Hazaras started going to colleges, universities. A lot of girls from across Hazara-dominated provinces, they went to schools and colleges and became. And I should say here that when there became a majority of Hazara students in Kabul University, President Ashraf Ghani issued an order that now we are going to distribute the medical seats, the engineering seats, and the computer science seats based on quota system. Like, it should not be merit-based. It should be based on provinces. Which province do you come from? Because they thought that, okay, this is all people coming from Bamiyan, all people coming from Mazar-e-Sharif or Ghazni. What about the other provinces? So this, unfortunately, has been throughout the history of Afghanistan.
Saleem, before I let you go, there are negotiations and conversations taking place in Kabul as to what the transition of power is going to look like and what the government is going to be like. Whatever the government would be, there will be a strong presence of the Taliban. In such a scenario, where do you see and how do you see the Hazara community within the Afghan administration be looked at? And do you see a lot of atrocity in the coming future that will be meted out to this community?
Well, I have this gut feeling that the Taliban perhaps going to ultimately bring one or two symbolic faces somewhere. Sometimes we joke that maybe they will say that, okay, the Minister of Railways will be Hazara because there is no railways in Afghanistan. So there will be some symbolic representation. But actually, everybody has accepted that Taliban are there. They are going to stay there, and they are trying to cope with the situation. And they do not know. The experts or the local leaders, the people around, the activists that I am talking, they do not know how to cope with it, how to do it.
Uncertainty looms large.
Yeah, very uncertain situation, and they simply hope hope it is right that they have changed. Maybe they have changed, and they are not going to at least kill us. At least they let us live. Okay, we accept that we are not going to practice our religion freely, because they have already, there are videos, and I have also talked with some people that Taliban have come and they have pulled down the Ashura Muharram flags because it is tomorrow is Ashura, so it is Muharram. So they have pulled down the flags and then replaced it with Taliban flags. And there are videos that they are taunting and making fun of the flags and even discrediting the flags and say that these are Shia flags, while they are not Shia flags. They actually, Afghanistan has the majority of Afghanistan are Hanafi Sunnis, which are very moderate Sunnis, and they have always had Muharram throughout Afghanistan. It is not just limited to Hazaras. But now the people have started self-censoring, exactly like the women. Now, despite the fact that no Taliban have told women to have shawl or burqa on them, but the women have started doing it automatically. Yeah, this is self-censorship. So the same as the Hazaras, they have started mourning Muharram inside the houses, not going very much
even the Sikh communities, some of them pulled out the Nishan-e-Sahib on their own, knowing that if the Taliban see the saffron flag, they will come for that. So there's a lot of self-censorship happening. Saleem, I do not know what the future holds for Afghanistan. As you said, it looks uncertain. For some communities, it looks rather bleak, because while promises are being made, at the very same time, those promises are being broken somewhere else in Afghanistan. So we need to see whether if the Taliban also have a handle on their own forces, their own people or not. For now, that doesn't look like the case. We'll come back to you as and when things develop to see how the minority sect of Afghanistan are really coping with a Taliban regime in Afghanistan. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today.
Thank you for having me.